But joining us right now here on Jones and Keefe on WEEI is Tom E. Curran of NBC Sports Boston. It's a Tom E. Tuesday. He's brought to you by D'Angelo's Sandwiches, which were delicious.
Yes, they were.
I dreamt about those last night. New England Sandwich Shop, FlexCar. You can save thousands with flexible car lease at flexcar.com and buy Awaken 180 weight loss. If you're hearing this, chances are you're less than 20 minutes away from the closest Awaken 180. A once-a-week lunch break, a quick stop in on the way from work, and minutes away from proven weekly weight loss at awaken180weightloss.com. Tommy Curran, how are we doing this week?
Tremendous. Now, was it my flex of the game last week with you guys talking about?
Yeah, break and contain. Yes.
Can't. I mean, it was really just major shoulders sag the first time Keon White went too far inside, and Purdy just scooted around the edge like you knew he would. I mean, it's just, and the one time they showed that contain, with two guys up the field and creating a little umbrella in the pocket, he had nowhere to go. He gets sacked. It's just, I hear Devon Godshaw's point. Whether they take that this week, I think, and I'm sorry to babble here at the outset.
Good.
Such a good clip. You know, that's where they're teetering a smidge. The schedule's going to get easier. There should be some easier opponents. But last week was a big week, and I think that, you know, the general mood is going to teeter a bit, and Mayo's done a good job with the culture so far, but you got to reel it in whilst not pissing guys off, but also getting them to heel.
So you went right to Keon White. We were kind of wondering, is it Keon White? Is it somebody else freelancing on like, who do you think he's talking about in that clip from Devon Godshaw yesterday?
Well, I thought the Keon White was responsible on a couple of the times he got caught inside, and he's such a tremendous player that, you know, I think that he might have gotten locked up there with, I don't know if it was Trent Williams exactly, but, you know, okay, well, he's got me here. I'm going to try and beat him here. And he started to move inside, was kind of over where the guard would be, and that just opened up an alley. I don't know if it's necessarily Keon White that Devon Godshaw is talking about, and I'm not sure if that was him trying to make a play or getting blocked there, but I would imagine that it's virtually everyone at different times as they're trying to play with a semblance. I mean, the way they're getting chunk played is something that will lead to desperation. It's one thing when you're playing the general defense, the scheme, and they're picking up 4, 4, and 3. Okay, they move the chains, but the chunk plays make it look like A, somebody's trying to do too much, and B, they're getting desperate.
Do you think it's good, bad, or indifferent that Godshaw's calling out his team? Nobody specifically, but still very much calling out guys on defense publicly.
Good. Just depends how it's received. It just depends how it's received. You know, it's like I said, it's a tenuous time. There's different ways. You know, if Teddy Bruschi, Mike Vrabel, Richard Seymour, Vince Wilfork were to any of those front seven guys call somebody out, it was a great team, and those guys had a backlog of experience and success on playoff teams and winning Super Bowls. Somebody might look at Godshaw, and I'm not saying they should, but you know, you might have individuals. We've all been in workplaces and say, "What are you talking about? What are you doing?"
How much should we look at Elliott Wolf's roster construction, specifically with the quarterback? I know a lot has been made about offensive line and other spots, but talking about the quarterback, where I feel like they put way too much faith in Jacoby Brissett to either certainly stay healthy, which he's done to this point, but I know you've been on that for a while. Like, how long can he stay healthy with the hits that he's taking? But if they don't want to play Drake May, I almost like threw my hands up in the air this week, Tom. I was like, all right, if they're not going to play Drake May, fine. But to not have any other alternative to Jacoby Brissett, I feel like that was a big failure by Elliott Wolf. How you don't have another veteran quarterback that you could turn to based on poor performance, or even freaking Bailey Zappi still hanging around on the roster. Do you look at that at all?
To an extent, and I think that the decision to hire Alex Van Pelt really dictated who he was going to bring in, who he was most comfortable with, who his quarterback would be. I mean, I know the Raiders aren't killing it, and I know he's never going to go to a Pro Bowl, and he's not going to go to Canton. But I kind of like Gardner Minshew.
Ooh, we do too.
Same.
We like him here too. It's a Gardner Minshew friendly zone. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And thank you. Good. I feel at home because I'll walk that out with Phil, and I get absorbed with a noodle. But if I, and I started to see the logic of Justin Fields because my general feeling on this team was it had been held hostage for 2 years by the offensive line. That needed to be stabilized. So I liked the idea of trading down, maximizing picks, bringing someone in, having the foundation laid before you brought a quarterback in. And I cannot scream at people who feel otherwise, but I still think that my general thought was okay. So if you brought in Justin Fields or Gardner Minshew, but when you decided, okay, we're not getting any of these other coordinators, let's go with Alex Van Pelt. Older guy, that could be a nice fit. Calm guy, that could be a nice fit. He knows the league. He's had success. We'll bring him in and he'll lay a foundation and it will be stable. So once you hire that individual, you're going to yield a lot to his vision for what he thinks a rebuild should look like. It shouldn't look like this, but he didn't also count on David Andrews and City So and chaos at the left tackle. So a lot of it goes to Alex Van Pelt and the decision made to bring him in. And I'm not criticizing it necessarily because I do like the adult in the room and the stability of an older guy. But I think Elliott Wolf just was looking at clouds and telling us it was a perfect day. I mean, that you would draft Caden Wallace and say he'll be our left tackle along with the guy that you signed in free agency, Chuks Okorafor, who was going to be the left tackle until Caden Wallace was ready. And now Chuks is long gone and hard to find, and Caden Wallace, unfortunately, is hurt and hasn't played that spot really well. It's malpractice. It's been malpractice, and they continue it.
We're talking to Tommy Curran on a Tommy Tuesday here on Jones and Keefe. You can check out all his work at NBC Sports Boston. Quick slants tonight. I want to circle back to something you said earlier. You think Mayo's done a good job with the culture?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think he's done a good job with the culture.
Okay, because we were talking about Chuks Okorafor leaving the team, and we're talking about Devon Godchaux calling out teammates, and just, I don't know, that seems like it's at least questionable what's going on in the locker room. But why do you disagree, I guess?
Well, if you use those examples, I guess Chuks Okorafor didn't like it because they were mean to him. And they asked him to do things and had expectations for him. So that's part of establishing a culture. If the guy doesn't want to be here and he ends up leaving, that's not a bad sign for the culture. I think that bending to appease the player who was not productive and now is unhappy would be more culturally damaging.
How about, let me give you an example of bending to the player. How about Stevenson with the fumbles? That would be an example of bending to the player.
I think that there's merit to putting him on the bench. I mean, you want to go back and forth on this.
Well, I just am curious because I think
it's been
the
good.
culture seems a little questionable.
You're 4 weeks into the season. They've got a crap ton of injuries. You're a first-year head coach. I don't think it's been an utter and outright disaster. We're not seeing mutinies. You're seeing a quarterback get served a poop sandwich with no bread every week and stand up and deal with it pretty well. You've not seen a lot of finger pointing. You get the Devon Godchaux, but Christ, they're getting absolutely hammered. I'm not surprised that somebody points the finger. I mean, that happens every year in every locker room. I don't really think that that's a sign that things are crumbling. Is it, the greatest culture in the world? Am I intimating that? No, but I think that I'm grading on where they are right now, the situation that they're in, and what the general tenor around the team and the locker room is. And I think it's kind of stable. I don't think it's chaos. I mean, last year was friggin' chaos between J.C. Jackson and Jack Jones. And, I mean, how was the culture then? You've marooned the quarterback. I mean, it's better now than it was, so I guess that's the curve.
How big a game, then, is it this weekend, considering how bad Miami looked last night? They're down to their fourth-string quarterback, I guess, the guy who they just signed off the street a week ago. You were talking about how, where things are at right now. You lose to San Francisco, yeah, okay, a lot of teams lose to San Francisco, but if you lose at home to this horrible-looking Miami team, what kind of domino effect could that have?
Yeah, then we could probably have a cultural conversation based upon the tenor after that game. I mean, I'm not stunned that they got their asses handed to them. You're not either.
Right.
The way it looked, we can absolutely still, as ugly as it looks on the surface, you can still say, well, this, and this probably contributed to that. But against Miami, you're going to have very few excuses to fall back on. Okay, so they're probably going to miss Jalen Phillips, their defensive end. So you should have a reduced pass rush that they're bringing. They don't have Nick Bosa. They don't have Fred Warner. So you have a better chance to put a representative effort out there as to where you are in this rebuild. And, the next 5 games are probably better indicators than the first 4. Where is it headed? We could definitely have a better culture conversation after the next 5 games than in the wake of a 31-13 drubbing.
Tommy Curran nailed his flex of the game last week. It's time again for Tommy Curran's flex of the game, presented by FlexCar. You can ditch the dealership and save thousands with FlexCar. What's your flex of the game for this week, Tom?
Flex of the game is fewer reps for Ramondre Stevenson. Big game for Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson goes off, and there you have another controversy. Should Antonio Gibson be the every down back? Antonio Gibson ran for 22, had 22 carries for 104 yards. And people really liked the way he played because he punched it in twice down at the goal line. I ran out of breath. I had so many predictions.
That's good, though. That's a lot. Yeah, we'll keep track of all those. I throw a lot at it, see what sticks. I like that. That's pretty good. Have you given up, like I have, guessing when Drake May's going to play, or is that something that's still kind of on your radar?
I think the timeline stuff is less, and we've all done it, and I've done it too. When's he going to play? When's he going to play? And we pick a date, and like a baby's, expected date, and it has less to do with when as opposed to what it looks like. When it looks okay between him and the team able to actually execute plays so that he's running an NFL offense as they envisioned, then he'll play. So certainly not yet on the latter portion,
so
and
next year.
well, that's what I was just going to ask. To take it through his logical conclusion, if it doesn't look right, he should not play this year, right? I mean, if they're going to stick to their plan, if it doesn't look right and it doesn't get fixed, he shouldn't play this year,
he
correct?
Ain't playing.
I love when you do that counselor stuff.
Well, I'm just saying.
Counselor,
but if it doesn't look, that's what we're talking about.
You take a thread and say Tommy Curran just said they're going to bench May for the whole year.
I didn't say that.
Why?
I'm saying I'm saying if it doesn't look, if it
but
doesn't.
At the end, when you say correct.
Okay, well, if it doesn't look right.
It's a feature of the way you ask questions. You distill it, and then at the end you say, so that's what you're saying.
Okay, but if it doesn't look right,
gives you a chance
if it doesn't look right all year, he shouldn't play, right? If they're going to stick to their plan. I mean, I think that's consistent. I don't like that plan, but if that's their plan, he shouldn't play if it doesn't look right.
I think you come to a point where you're just sitting in there and not getting any yield from his first year in terms of seeing him on the field. So I think at this juncture, while the season is still, quote unquote, in the balance, and you have the illusion of being a competitive team, you leave it alone. But when it turns into garbage time, if you didn't use them, like I've said a couple times in the last few days, I landed on this. Once there's 6 games under 500, put them out there regardless.
Okay. Well, there we go. So that's that might be hard to find on the schedule, but maybe about 6 weeks from now, based on the way they're playing. He's Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. You can check out all his work. Yeah,
I wasn't mad. That was just an exchange. That is something you do, and I'm like, oh boy, now I got to dig out.
No, it's comparing me to a lawyer. It's my parents would be very proud. You can check out his work at Quick Slants, NBC Sports Boston tonight. New episode there. We talk to Tom every Tuesday. He's Thursdays on WEAI afternoon with Arcan and Hart. Tom, we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much.
All right, boys. We'll see you.
Very good, Tom.
Tommy Curran here on WEEI.